Altra, the brand we know and love for having wide toe box, zero drop cushion shoes, have brought out a 4mm drop shoe. So today we're going to ask what the hell's that all about and are they any good? Let's get into it. First up, I bought these shoes with my own money, as I have with all my Altra shoes, but the only bias you need to be aware of is that I've been an Altra fanboy since 2009, but we'll get into that. To test these shoes, I'm probably the only person on the planet who has run a road marathon, a track 100-mile race, and done a high rocks. So I've really put them through their paces, and I feel like I can tell you all the pros and cons. To understand these shoes, I think you need a brief history of Altra. They were started in 2009, I actually had a pair back then, and to put it politely, they weren't the prettiest shoes in the world, but they did provide a good alternative for people who'd been trying minimal running on the back of reading Born to Run, and actually just realised it was ruining their feet because they didn't grow up barefoot. Fast forward a few years, and in 2018 they were bought out by VF Corporation, who also own the North Face, Vans and Timberland. So all you really need to know about that company is they know how to sell shoes. This meant that they started to make prettier shoes, and they've changed to narrower toe boxes, which has caused a bit of controversy with some of the original Altra fans. But Altra still do make original wide-fitting shoes, you just have a much more limited choice. From a selfish perspective, although I value a wide toe box, I actually have a naturally narrow foot, so the slim and the standard iterations of Altras kind of suit me. Having said that, my favourite shoe of all time is the Lone Peak, and that's one of the wider ones. Anyway, back to the Altra Forward. I've no doubt this shoe was created because of a growing number of people who value a wide toe box but don't have the ankle dorsiflexion to cope with a zero drop shoe. I personally have no problem with this. I think it's going to be interesting, and secretly I've wanted a wide toe box shoe with a drop for a while just to see how it feels. So, can you feel the drop? Well, 4mm doesn't sound like much, but the ankle only has on average of 20 degrees of dorsiflexion, so every little bit counts. I might be imagining it, but I think there's a lightness at the front of the tibia that isn't there in my other zero drop shoes. Other than the drop though, there is something that's more significant and more pronounced that I really do feel, and that's the rocker motion. A bit of me wonders if they're trying to steal business from Hoka, and I don't blame them. I've tried Hoka shoes, but the narrow toe box always feels weird to me. I definitely prefer this combo of the rocker motion and the wider toe box. The other thing that immediately jumped out to me with these shoes is the midsole is made of a compression molded EVA, and that felt very firm compared to the other Altras I've been using. The first run I did in these shoes I really don't recommend doing, but it was a full road marathon. I didn't race it, it was my last big training run before the track 100. But even though I wasn't pushing the pace, I did feel like the firmness was going to cause a tendinitis. Thankfully it didn't, and around the 10-mile mark I picked up the pace anyway, and as I started to lean more into my run and get more arm drive, trying to pick up the pace, that's where this rocker motion and firm midsole really came into its own. The only significant negative point about these shoes presented itself in the track 100, but I'm going to cut them a bit of slack because running 100 miles around a track is a pretty weird thing to do. However, as I got further into the race, these pads that nestle next to your Achilles started to rub and actually made my calves really tight. I found this slightly ironic because the 4mm drop is supposed to relieve calf tightness, but I would say my calves have been a bit tighter since running in these shoes more often. To summarise the pros and cons of this shoe, I'm going to compare it to the Rivera, which is one of Altra's traditional zero drop shoes, but it has a midsole that is much softer. After wearing the Forward for so many runs and races, I put this shoe back on to do a Zone 2 slow half marathon on a Sunday, and it felt like bliss. I was so pleased to do my slow running in a softer shoe. When running in the Forward, the firmness feels a bit unnecessary when you're doing a base run. Having said that, on that half marathon, for the final 2 miles, I wanted to do a tempo finish. I leant forwards, a stronger arm drive, went to pick up the pace, and this gave nothing back. All that extra force that I was creating just got lost through this soft, flexible midsole. Comparing that to the Forward, when you ask it for some oomph, it's there. This is a great faster training shoe or a race shoe. Obviously it's not comparable to Carbon, but if you want a race shoe that doesn't break the bank like Carbon does, this would be a good option. The 4mm drop, the rocker motion, the firm midsole, it really makes for an enjoyable run. One more thing, and that's that I did high rocks in this shoe, which involved 8k of running, but between each kilometre we had to do hard obstacles involving sled pushing and sled pulling and burpees and squats and lunges, and I was grateful for the 4mm drop, particularly in things like the squats, and these were actually a really good shoe for high rocks. Obviously these shoes wouldn't be great with heavier barbell work or something like CrossFit, but for circuits where there's more of an emphasis on cardio, these would be a great choice. If you've made it this far, I'm guessing you care for your feet, so have a look at this strength routine for runners where I teach you the foot exercises I do.